who is flying dozens of drones all across New Jersey with no authorization? And more importantly, why is the United States unable to do anything about it? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about the strange story of New Jersey's drone epidemic. Okay, so this is one of literally dozens of videos that are on social media.
Today is November 25th, 2024.
Each of these lights is actually a drone flying.
See 3 drones just in this view. There is another one over here and another one back here.
There's a 4th.
That's 5.
So you can see what they look like to almost be doing is deploying some kind of almost like a lattice or a relay network where they're all in line of sight of each other.
5. And these are the ones that interest me most because they are coming right this way. This is taken from across the street of...
But what we have to ask ourselves then is why? And this is something where this isn't just a couple of guys on social media. Reportedly, there are dozens of these drones that are flying across Morris County, but also Medham, Chester, Randolph, Roxbury, Morris, Rockaway, Dover, and beyond. This is a really bizarre series of events, right? When you look up Morris County, New Jersey, you can see that it's notable in that it is just a suburb of New York. But what's also kind of weird is that it's kind of near Picatinny Arsenal and Trump's Bedminster Golf Course, but neither of them are so sensitive and significant that they would warrant flying dozens of reconnaissance drones. And again, if your goal was to spy on the United States military bases in that area, you wouldn't deploy kind of these area drones like that. And so what's also troubling is that there's an acknowledgement, right, by the FBI that this is a open investigation, and there's other signs that this is not part of a military testing protocol. But before we talk about why I know that and what I think is really happening with these drones, I wanted to mention 2 things. The first, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, you should. I checked, about 90% of you guys are not subscribed, and that does make a difference for my channel. But second, if you want to keep me independent and get access to uncensored GoPro and drone footage from the front lines, you want to become a member over on combatvetnews.com. This is my version of Patreon, where twice a week, I get the latest footage from the front lines. In some cases, units that I've met in Ukraine are actually sending me footage now from their drone pilots. So it's a lot of this. We're starting to get more and more totally exclusive, fresh from the front lines, literally out of the chat videos. So if you want that and to support me, check it out, combatvetnews.com. Link is in the description. Okay, so here's the reason why I know this isn't part of some kind of weapons testing program or like a drone lattice, like a drone network testing, is because this is a medevac helicopter trying to land in Somerset County, New Jersey, was unable to do so because these nighttime drone flights were occurring. Right. And so this was a late night crash that required a life flight, and the life flight was unable to land because there were drones in the air, and that individual had to be transported by ground to the nearest hospital much slower and really in a much more dangerous situation. The FBI is requesting pictures and videos from the public. This is not something you would do if they were testing an experimental weapon system, right? Remember, decades ago when the U.S. was testing its B-2s and its F-114 stealth fighters and bombers, they didn't really encourage pictures. They wouldn't allow pictures to be published, and certainly the FBI wasn't telling people, hey, take pictures of those aircraft, make sure we can, the Area 51 wants all the photos and mementos they can get, right? That's not what you do with your own weapon systems. You would instead be like, don't worry about it, it's under control, or make some vague statement of, but right now the FBI is like, no, call us if you see them. Report it if you see them. We don't know where it is and what's going on. And that itself is pretty troubling, because we've got to ask ourselves, why would you do this? Why would you fly dozens of drones at night? By most of the reports, these are very large drones, right? Larger than you can fit on a desk is how one person described it. Some people even said they were the size of small cars, but people are bad at judging distance in the daytime, and they're even worse at night. But still, these are large, powerful drones. And so I think what this may actually be is because dozens of drones indicates that this is not like an amateur operation, right? Dozens of large capacity heavy lift drones, not something that you would expect from, again, a group of hobbyists or, like basically any kind of hobby related thing. Again, a large, let's see what like a 6-foot wingspan drone would cost, right? So you're talking about, well, if these were fixed wing drones, okay, here you go. A seed spraying drone with about 6 rotors, going to run you about $1,000. A long range, kind of like a Mavic clone, is going to be about $3,000. You can see a flying cart delivery drone from DJI is going to run you about $20,000. So what we're talking about are $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 drones, or we'll say between $3,000 and $10,000 a pop. This is something that's at the edge of what you would expect to see from a hobbyist, right? A hobbyist might get one of these drones to fly, but they are not going to get dozens and dozens of them, right? And that requires coordinating dozens and dozens of people who own these drones and are flying them at the same time. So there's a couple of possible explanations, right? So one, we should consider it is possible, but very unlikely, that this is sort of like a drone operator's version of joyriding. Those ATVs and dirt bikes that would sometimes blaze through cities and kind of gangs just being reckless and crazy. It could be the version of that. But generally, drone pilots, drone operators, drone hobbyists do not behave this way. They're a high investment item. There's not like a fun element, right? If they were out there having fun, you would see the drones looping and drooping and zipping and zagging, right? They're not doing that. They're sitting in formation, clearly occupying positions, either watching something or testing out some kind of protocol. And so that's sort of the other theory. And my leading theory is actually, we've seen other intelligence operations, particularly the Chinese, who would have Chinese nationals who are at the end of their visa anyway, would appear to be being put up by Chinese intelligence to purchase commercial drones, fly them over sensitive military facilities, and then report the footage back to the Chinese. These individuals are then arrested. They claim they were just drone hobbyists. They plead guilty to a 3 to 6 month sentence for unauthorized flying a drone without permission, and the Chinese government welcomes them back after they're deported. And so this kind of protocol might be something that other countries are starting to experiment with. It's also more sinister. These other hostile actors may be asking themselves, what exactly can the United States stop? At what scale does the U.S. actually intervene and stop drones? And this is one of the things that I've talked about there. The U.S. is very passive in the face of, well, frankly, almost anything foreign intelligence services do. Turkey appears to have faced no consequences for bribing Mayor Eric Adams. The Russian intelligence wing has faced 0 consequences for frying the brains of intel officers. Those Chinese nationals that flew drones faced, again, slap on the wrist sentences, and their punishment is getting sent back to China, which is, of course, exactly what they want. So the U.S., and remember the Chinese spy balloon that flew over the entirety of the continental United States before the United States even chose to shoot it down. And so what I think may be happening is a foreign power is asking the question of, what does it take for the United States military to intervene on drone flights? What does it take? And what is their process when the drones become so pervasive that they become, what is the tool the U.S. uses to stop drones? And this is one of the reasons that the U.S. may not be shooting down drones, is because they're like, we have some kind of secret gee whiz thing, but we don't want to show our hand. So we're just going to, unless the drones are doing something really egregious, we don't want to show it, because once we show people how we're going to stop the drones, then those state actors are going to engineer drones that are thing proof, right? And so the U.S. military may say, we don't want to show our hand because we only have one way to take down these drones. We don't want to get ousted for it. But the fear, and that what's starting to happen now, is that these foreign powers are saying, perhaps the U.S. military or U.S. government has no way to take down drones. Perhaps they cannot stop these drones from flying, and we are going to just scale them up to a degree that is absolutely absurd, where almost no state would permit this kind of activity, and we're going to get the U.S. to deploy whatever its anti-drone weapons are. Or they're simply going to say, maybe we're going to expose them as being utterly powerless to stop them, which is sort of the more terrifying option. But again, if the U.S. is unwilling to stop drones, is it the same thing as being unable to stop them, right? Because you could sit there and say, yeah, I could stop this drone anytime I want. It's like an alcoholic who's like, physically, I can stop drinking anytime I want. I can put down the glass and no one is forcing me to drink. But is being unwilling to stop drinking the same thing as being unable to stop drinking, right? Anyone who's dealt with someone with addiction will tell you, yeah, they're the same thing. And so if the U.S. government is so impotent that they refuse to even stop continually pervasive harassment of unauthorized drone flights, if they're so limp-wristed that they can't do it, then it's the same thing as being unable to do it. And so if you're one of the U.S.'s enemies, you're looking at this and you're saying, man, it sounds like we can spy on anything we want, and more troubling, that with just a commercially available explosive, again, something like, say, tannerite, which anyone can purchase, or even just fireworks from a fireworks stand and some ball bearings, you could easily turn these drones from being harassment and noisemakers to weapons. And again, if the U.S.'s current policy is we can't stop them or we won't stop them, then the level of vulnerability that a lot of us, the U.S. public, are subject to could be tremendous. All right. So anyway, guys, that's all I had. Again, I don't want these things to be like turbo alarmist, but I get alarmed when I see our government unable to address a threat. And the more publicly they fail to address even the most obvious imminent threats, the less faith that we, the public, have in our government's ability to do anything, right? How can we expect a government to keep us safe from Russian hackers or, terrorists, or pick your poison, guys? Russians, terrorists, North Koreans, Chinese spies. How can they expect even scam callers? Look at how little the U.S. government seems able to stop. If they can't stop somebody from calling my phone and be trying to scam me out of money, and they can't stop some jabroni from flying drones again and again and again, then how are they going to stop anything? And they can't sit there and say, well, we don't understand why the public doesn't trust us. Well, it's because you're almost humiliatingly impotent. Anyway, guys, that's my rant. Thank you guys to the Colonel tier members of CombatVetNews.com, like James Sterling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himmerling, Brian Kelly, Dale McCombs, James Ola, Henry Roosier, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. Couldn't do it without you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.